In this session, we would like to address the influences of AI and robotics in our daily lives, but not only in our daily lives, but also in the influence they will have on the business of our businesses and, of course, of our society. And I think it's also very important to see all the aspects, not only the aspects it will have on our companies. And AI is already available in the market and it's already creeping into our lives, and sometimes we haven't seen where it is, but it's already there. And for a start, I would like to ask you, did you already know that in Japan, Ericsson announced an artificial intelligent bot as their creative director already in 2016? Also in 2017, in March, the first person was sent to prison for 6 years based on an artificial intelligence software certifying that he has a high hazardous potential for the public. Or did you know that there is already an AI software application available for your smartphone which can improve your life and your lifestyle as part of a personal assistant? And I think it's quite impressive what Stephen Hawking said about AI. He said, we can't know if we will be infinitely helped by artificial intelligence or ignored by it and sidelined or destroyed by it. And I really would like to deep into these issues. And next to me is sitting Chris Boss. He's a founder of Aragon, which is a German-based artificial intelligence companies. And Chris, for a start, I think many people are afraid of artificial intelligence. How do you, as a founder of an AI company that is in the business now for more than 20 years, answer when fears are expressed regarding artificial intelligence?
So let me tell you a joke that we have in the AI community of those people who try to build general AI. It's only called AI for the time it doesn't work. Right after it works, it gets a real name, like facial recognition or something like that. I think this whole discussion about super intelligence, so on, is actually quite cowardice of us people, because we're so far away from an independent intelligence and all these moves that we make to shift ethics all of a sudden to machine, because we are not able to stand up for our own values anymore. That's kind of sad. I think that AI has the potential to change a lot in our economic systems, maybe something like the steam machine did for industrialization or so on, but that is something that we are embracing. And I think this time we might be shocked, because normally companies embrace technologies first and then force them up on consumers. And this time, with all the digital technologies as AI, also consumers have embraced the technology first, and now the companies are trying to catch up.
When you think about industrial manufacturing and clothing production, what happened when we employed machines initially to mass produce clothing was we lost the one-to-one connection between the person making the garment and the person wearing it. And so we now, what you're all wearing today, these are clothing that were designed for you, and there was a very small data set that was used to generate that article and assure that it would fit you. And now what I do, my team at Zalando, we actually expand that data set. So we generate additional fitting information for the articles that come through and are sold on the Zalando website. And using that data, we have 2 algorithms that create size advice for our retail customers. What does this mean? This means that I can tell you whether a pair of shoes runs a little bit too big or a little bit too small, which is a really practical piece of information to help all of our customers come in and make a purchase that is meaningful to them. And for people that we have a relationship with, where I know what you've bought in the past and I know what you've kept, I can give you a very precise size recommendation when you're looking for a new dress. So I like to think of AI, machine learning, however you want to call it. It's actually, in a lot of ways, it's an opportunity for us, first of all, to know ourselves better. So I always say at Zalando, it's an opportunity for us to really understand the assortment that we're putting in front of customers and help customers make sense out of it. So it's a reconnection in a way.
And one last thing is, because this week there will be the ESA astronaut Alexander Gerst will be flying to the space station, and later he will be joined by a companion, Simon. Simon is the acronym for Crew Interactive Mobile Companion, and Simon will be a free falling ball-shaped robot. He will able to interact with Gerst to play his favorite music. He knows thousands of sentences, and the idea is really to start. He will also, I mean, they will also do things together, the cubic puzzles or some experiments. But the idea is also try to see how robot and humans can really interface and which kind of experience this will bring. So watch Simon.
The question of algorithmic bias, it's becoming a big topic, and that's because it's pervasive. It is everywhere, it is affecting everything, and we're only just starting to grapple with it. In the US, there are already court cases around, I think there are 17. And I use that figure deliberately because I really have no idea how many there are. But if I said 17, you're going to find me far more convincing. Okay? And here's one of our biases straight away, is that we think that machines are not biased. Okay? We believe that it's machine learning or it's computer, and therefore it's smarter than us and it's accurate. If it's got numbers, it's got to be right. Okay, so we have an inherent bias to believe something that comes at us in an algorithmic result, whereas we would not necessarily, we would question it if it came to us in any other fashion. So right there is one of the first important biases. And then there is a classic way of looking at the algorithmic bias issue, which is to say, you know, the algorithm has to have a teacher and a textbook. And the teacher is asking the questions. So you have to be asking the right questions. And the textbook is providing you with the information that you're using to get your answers. So first you have to ask the right questions, and then second you need to have the right information. And this goes back pre-algorithmic bias. We've seen in examples of product design based on biased sample sets. So I'm sure most of us are aware that airbags and seatbelts cause more injuries for women and men of small stature than they prevent, and in fact are fatal in certain front-facing collisions. And it's because they were designed around male crash test dummies. And those were not simply just a male average. It was a male average based on a product design handbooks that were informed by the US military. Okay, so when your crash test dummy is equivalent 50% male, it's a very young, fit, tall male at that. So, you know, if we look at the fatality statistics, small women. Also, you're out of luck if you're an Italian man or Vietnamese. But this is because the original data is biased. And so first off, we're biased about how we think about the results. We are not using the digital literacy that was talked about earlier. And then there are the structural reasons why algorithms can be biased.
And how can we overcome the biases then? How can we structure the data, or, you know, get the bias out of the data?
Well, certainly it's a layered problem. And one of the areas to fix this is by insisting on transparency. And this is really difficult when algorithms are proprietary. But there is more of a move to have either transparency or, how would you say, certification. And, you know, it may be ideal to develop, say, a certification around algorithms. And I wouldn't be surprised if the insurance industry wasn't the first to push for this, because, you know, that's an industry that makes money out of knowing exactly how many answers are right, as it were. So, you know, I think that it's going to be similar to the physical product design, where at a certain point we want to see something as being standardized, meeting certain standards, and of being reliable in quality testing. So we need quality assurance and reliability testing on algorithms.
What influence does have this bias, Andra, that all these systems are all called by a female name, like Siri and Alexa and Cortana? Why are always the assistant is called as a female? Are we more the servants, or?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because you know, you mentioned the implicit bias pages is really good on Wikipedia as well, actually, Chris. It is. There's something like 217 different biases that we fall into, the way we actually act. And I think Kahneman and Tversky's work on fast thinking and slow thinking, the different systems of thought, this actually leads into the field of what our implicit bias or our unconscious kind of connections go. We've spent a decade or two, well, a lot longer actually, but you know, we thought we'd seen a lot of progress in the last generation or two of feminism, of reaching a point where now we just needed to, you know, the proposition was nailed. We just needed to execute now that men and women were equal. Okay, but our unconscious and our text and cultural biases say that women are nurses and men are doctors. And what that means is that when you're doing machine learning on something, the text that you're collecting your data from will give you correlations that are gender specific. And in every instance, that's referring back to all of the stereotypes that we thought we'd left behind. And some of the findings that have come out of a lot of different psychological research or psychiatric research, but particularly some of the work at Stanford from Reeves and Nass, which is particularly a book called The Media Equation, where they did a lot of experiments to find out how people treated computers or thought about computers, which, I mean, computer, robot is very same. But it gets to the point where they looked at the way we treat inanimate objects as well. And we will behave differently around things like rocks or computers based on whether or not we see it as female or male. We will see a male computer as more reliable, more truthful, more authoritarian. We're more likely to follow its orders and believe that it's making sensible decisions. Whereas we will see a female computer as more helpful, more empathetic, more pleasant to be around. And so what we've seen is that 5/6 of our voice assistants have been deliberately given female names just because that's the first assumption that comes to mind. Well, we've got to call it Cortana. Alexa taught itself to be female. The female voice was based on feedback, continued feedback. I think they started gender neutral. And it's a little bit like, these days you can change the voices for your voice assistants, but how many of us do? So we're developing this feedback because more female voices are providing this sort of information. We get more used to that. Now we're building robots to go along with this, and it means we're embodying the stereotypes. So you're definitely seeing a rise of service robots that are female, that are subservient, that are giving you directions and assisting you. And male voices in robots that are doing security or authoritative tasks. And I wish I'd recorded it, but I was in London recently, and I've looked it up. I'm told these voices do change, but I was on the train and it was, you're now approaching Hampstead, something or other, and your next station is going to be Mind the Gap.